first thing you do, rather the first thing you don't do with plexiglass is you never unmask it. Okay, I'm just doing that so I can show you the surface for comparison. It's there for a reason. It's got a low aggression or a low aggressive adhesive on it that keeps it in place. It protects it from incidental scratches and laying it down on a surface, because you're going to start working on this. You've already cut it, so you've got a particular pattern of abrasion on it. At every step in this recipe, my goal is going to be to eliminate that pattern of abrasion and replace it with another one. So I got saw cuts on it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace it with file marks. So I put it in one of these vices. Make sure you've either got the wooden jawed vices or that you've made accommodation to put a softer material than this against your jaws to hold this in place. Clamp it in place tightly. Now, it's not going to get away from me at that point. But it's technique. You're using what you know about the file and the stroke. The cutting stroke of a file is one direction. It does not cut when you draw it back. It only cuts in a forward stroke. So I'm trying to orient the file, the flat surface of the file, against the flat surface of this, which is why I get a fat sample to do this on, so I don't wind up rounding it over, which is going to happen to some extent anyway. But you begin at one end and you begin working the marks out. It's not absolutely necessary that you go stroking from one end to the other, but it's a good technique to get because you're able to then remove more material in a shorter amount of time. But what I'll do is get this worked down, and I've got some irregularities here. They're going to take me a little bit longer, but I want you to look at them, the result of the file acting on this surface when I'm prepared to move on to the next step. I leave nothing of the saw cuts on there. I replace it exclusively with the marks that the file's making. Okay, I'm going to leave one defect in this end that's too deep, that is a representative mark left by the saw. But for the most part, this completes that filing step. So I've replaced one pattern of scratches with another pattern of scratches, and that's really all I've done. But the key is that I've done it consistently. See the defect at this end? That remnant right there? If I were to go on to the next step without addressing that, that mark would remain. And it's pretty humbling, because at any point along the way, if you've got a mark like that and you're buffing this out to a high shine, you have to go back in and start with the filing process again. Right here's the defect. Did you notice it? Okay, everybody's taking a look at this. You can see, you understand, recognize the difference between what I've left here and what's on this edge here. Everybody recognize that? Notice I keep the paper moving, I keep the tool moving. It's possible to leave the abrasive in one place long enough that it will begin to heat and melt that surface. Even though this is a real hard grade of polymer or of plexiglass, it's still possible to put that defect in there. Now, I've still got some residual marks that I can see. Part of them are from the fact that I put a fresh piece of sandpaper on here. Part of them are still a result of the filing process. What I want to do now is determine whether I can get those little residuals out with another application of this end to end, or whether I in fact need to step back at this point and take a deeper gouge out of it with this again. If I do it, I've got to do the entire surface. Because if I don't, I'm going to be telegraphing deeper and deeper in an area that I'm addressing individually. So I want to take this off uniformly if I'm going to do it. That goes to the fit of the part after you're done with it, the final result, so that you've got a uniform surface that you've finished up to this, whatever level you're taking it to. Now, as I wipe that clean, I can come back in here, and if I look very carefully, I can see the track marks of this random orbit. You can begin to see the shape of a particle moving on that surface back and forth against it. Right now, this is just the cotton wheel. Is nothing more than that. It's tightly woven, tightly sewn together. It's multi-layers of cotton. I will put rouge on this wheel to start with. Don't ever hesitate to re-rouge your wheel. It's better to have too much rouge on it than too little, because the rouge acts as an abrasive. The cotton wheel itself has none of that property, and as you push harder to get more results or response out of the wheel, you literally heat up your surface and heat up the fabric next to it. And again, you can melt your material by not having a sufficient amount of rouge on the wheel. It's pretty easy to determine how much is enough. What you're hearing is the wire brush here, which is a new one. I work that over the sides as well, so that I've got good buildup on all that fiber. Now you can see it coming off. I'm not going to put a mask on because I got to keep talking, but that's flying up in the air. This is what's coming off the wheel when you're buffing. Okay, again, I'm going to concentrate on the lowest 50% of it as I move across. All the way down from end to end. You have to be cautious that you don't catch the corner, because that's where you can have this pull out of your hand and drop. So make sure that you've got a good grip on your piece. These are about as small as you want to have to control them. Much smaller than this, you wind up bumping your fingertips, which won't kill you, but you don't want to jam your finger into something moving that fast. I'm going to flip this and do the other side and pass it around again. You learn about the amount of pressure that you can apply and the placement. You realize why you don't want to put it up high on the wheel, for the same reason that you don't want to put your tool up high when you're turning in the lathe. Your body language is somewhat the same. If you're roughing out, you know that you're not only moving your hands and your arms, but oftentimes you're locking them in position, either moving from your ankles or knees or moving from your hips, to keep that in a consistent attitude with the wheel. And again, it's technique. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Now, if you look through that mirror finish, you can see the abrasions on the far side. Look at it up in the light and see if you can detect any swirls or patterns in that, just like you'd look at your finish samples.